Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 2 in Miami officially begins today. 2 teams on the opposite side of the bracket, OpTic and the New York Subliners. They played last weekend. Pred especially, but also the OpTic boys in general, giving HyDra some grief for his reaction to that Game 5 Round 11 defeat. But 4 massive games going down today. Also some rumours, probably on the negative side, as to what's happening at Major 4 as well in the coming months' time. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Happy 24th birthday to Ben J. Asim for yesterday. I'm just joking, by the way. Azini says the following: there was some great IRL streaming going down yesterday here from ZooMaa with plenty of great moments throughout the day. I will share in a couple of minutes time actually a clip that he came up with on Major 4. I think he mentioned this on stream a couple of times, saying that people aren't going to be so happy about it, and then he said, hey, have you guys heard what's happening at Major 4? And then he mutes the mic and doesn't want to say anymore. So we'll discuss that a bit more here in a second as to what that might potentially mean, because they're out there in Miami. Major 3 is in Toronto. I imagine that's all going to go ahead smoothly because they did one there last year. Major 4 is in Carolina, right? It was North Carolina. It's in Charlotte. Now, there's been questions as to whether how that's going to be done. They had an event in North Carolina last year, right in Raleigh, but it was right at the start of the year. That was league hosted, not organization hosted. And just generally speaking, Ravens have been in a bit of a questionable spot. They were telling their players a little while ago they were going to get a facility for them to play in. I don't really know what the update on that is. There was talks that, yep, they were going to move to a facility. That's, Clay was moving out of Texas and all this. That doesn't necessarily seem to have happened yet. There were some delays on it. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. But as an organization, Ravens have been logistically rather compromised over the last several years. We know full well that whenever they try and get anybody a visa, it just never works. And we've seen that with Real again this most recent season. Zero suffered with that a couple of years ago. There's also lots to talk about the expenses they still owed some of the players. Dominate was talking about this with the Ravens, right? That is like, you guys still owe me thousands of dollars. Pretty sure what was happening there is it's not necessarily salary that hasn't been paid. It's more like the organization was telling the players and the staff to pay for things like flights and expenses themselves, and then the organization would pay that back, and they basically never did. That's what's that's what, to my understanding, is what's going on there. So it's an absolute mess. And do you trust an organization to run their own event properly? I'm not so convinced. So I'll share that clip for you guys in a second when we discuss the OpTic stuff. Before we get there, might as well complete the set on the control stats. We've looked at the hardpoint stats on my turtle. We've looked at the search and destroy stats. These are the control stats. FaZe, by the numbers, best control team in the game. The differential is very impressive from both FaZe and OpTic here. OpTic are 13-6, FaZe are 16-3 this year in control, but FaZe are averaging 2.7 rounds per game to 1.4 against, which is absurd, but OpTic ain't far behind. They're averaging 2.47 to 1.47. No other team is anywhere near that number. Surge are actually by far the worst. I mean, they're averaging basically around a game, which ain't pretty, especially given how offensive or defensive sided certainly many of these maps are. Some teams, of course, in the middle here, 8-8 for plenty of teams. Subliners, just out of interest of the top 4 teams, they are the weakest control team by a bit of a margin, really. They don't have a particularly positive record, even, 2.1 to 1.9. So that is the game mode where they're more vulnerable. It is interesting looking at all the top teams because they have their strengths and weaknesses. Ultra, on paper, don't have the greatest control either. It's their search and their hardpoint especially that's carried them through this season so far. But Subliners are vulnerable at mode, but they're great at search and destroy. Ultra are okay at control, really good at hardpoint. Their search and destroy might be a bit lackluster. FaZe, their hardpoint is good, their control is really good, their search and destroy might be a bit of a question. Then OpTic are kind of pretty well rounded right now. So, man, this event is so fascinating, and we're going to get some indications today. Now, the Cookie Monster TJ, he's only going to be playing tomorrow, right? Because if you start and loses, you play it on the Friday. So it seems he's got an extra day here to recover from Crumbled Cookie or whatever's been going on there. We've got to talk about exactly what was going on with the OpTic boys. Yesterday, they also did again one of these 1v1 things they put together, right? With, well, here's Shotzzy making some, well, actually, Big Boy Bad 2 is is plus 900 for, I don't know, taking down Shotzzy, whatever it was. They did this 1v1 thing with Scump back in Boston. They set it up yesterday here as well, as you guys can see. And as Shotzzy says, just assassinated this guy with radar on me. Yeah, look at everyone attending this. Honestly, a really cool setup they've got, right? Just because we know that the venue was charging some obscene amount of money to actually have things done in the venue, unfortunately. So they've had to find alternatives. And Shotzzy actually got cooked in a 1v1 by this kid here. I believe he's called Jace. I think he's 8 years old or something. So, you know, maybe Shotzzy wasn't trying his hardest, but I don't know. I just thought this was really cool, actually. The reaction to this as well yesterday was absolutely spectacular. So just great content all around from all involved. And yeah, GG's plus $900 or whatever the prize winnings were for actually beating Shotzzy in this one. I remember a couple of years ago, back at CWL, I think it was Anaheim 2019, and they used to do this back in the day. There'd be like a TV sponsor, I forget what they were, but there was a side station at the event, and you could go over to that and 1v1 Nameless, and if you could beat Nameless, you'd win a TV. That was the game, and I think a couple of people did. I wish they'd bring that stuff back a little bit more, just because that's what really made those events, I thought, is when you go to the event, and it's not just about the COD that's going on. Like, there used to be the main stage, there used to be Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta as well, or Bravo, Charlie, Delta on the side stations. You could go and watch as well, they were happening simultaneously. Then there was the open bracket just behind you with so many matches happening, and then there was all sorts of other things to do at the venue as well. Nowadays, the COD events are still fantastic, but you know, going back to a time where there were multiple matches at once, there were so many things to do, there were games to play. You know, they still do this at some events, but you know, I think they could do a better job of this, and I think they will over time as well. However, we're finally getting back to LAN. That is at the very least a positive. Last weekend, OpTic played the Subliners. They may well play again this major. I mean, any matchup between the top 4 teams is possible, but they are on opposite side of the bracket. If OpTic win today, if Toronto win today, they'll play each other in winners round 2. The Subliners are on the other side of the bracket, which makes sense to be fair. And in fairness, New York, they play Boston round 1. Arguably one of the harder games on paper, just because Boston tend to play up to their competition, and they do have some firepower there, especially when it comes down to a LAN environment. They're still going to be favoured to win, but maybe it's not an absolute guarantee. So OpTic were reacting to HyDra's reaction. They decided to bring this up, and Kenny is pretty funny, right? Dashy, and Kenny especially, doesn't want to laugh too hard at this, just because he knows what's been happening for the last couple of years. Kenny would constantly get roasted about this when he was on the Thieves, laughing after winning map 1, map 2. To be fair, usually when Kenny would laugh or whatever and have a good time during a series, they would usually go on to win. That tends to be how it works. In this case, HyDra was having a good time after going up in the series. Then they lost the game 5 round 11. He wasn't so happy about it. Predator and Shotzzy found this pretty hilarious, and it is a funny clip. Now, it might come back to my OpTic, this one, right? I mean, you can imagine the New York Subliners tweeting this out as and when Subliners might beat them at the event, but they obviously feel confident enough to do so. And also, Gersh was mentioning on ZooMaa's stream yesterday that OpTic are like locked in for this event. He reckons FaZe are obviously really good. FaZe are always going to be really good. They'll probably make the finals. Whether they win the finals, that's another question. But he also said that OpTic have just been playing so much COD, they really want to win this one. So we'll see if that translates.
Did you hear about what happened in Major 4, right? Obviously don't say it.
No, I didn't.
You didn't hear what happened?
No.
Have you guys seen that Twitter where like the vodka thing where
it's on the Rio, on the Rio,
that was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Somebody tweeted out like a before and after of like, because they won map 1 and then Paco was like laughing.
Wait, go put
it was just.
Wait, have you seen it?
I've seen a few of those of me from last year. Okay.
I don't mind. Like,
when they laughing and it's just like the lose 4 after the match.
Yeah. If someone's laughing, I don't really like.
Well, they're
vibing. You know what I'm saying?
No, 100%.
But it's just like the clip was funny.
No, the clip was funny.
So whoever made it is actually comedy.
No, you'll see right now.
Stop the cat.
Wow,
that caption's nuts. Nah, they're going to
Wait, what was the caption?
Life comes at you. That caption just makes it even worse. Like, what? Like, what kind of caption, bro?
Motherfuckers just can't laugh anymore. Motherfuckers can't enjoy themselves. Or else you're getting clipped.
That shit fuck with Paco, man. That shit hilarious, bro.
That is funny, dude. That is hilarious. But, wait, what are we at the time?
What the fuck?
What the fuck? What in the fuck? Gene Ant looks.
You got me fucked up. What?
Ken actually looks
Why
real.
am I shorter than
Like,
Piz?
Ken actually looks like Ken. I swear to God, it looks like Ken, dude.
Bro.
If Ken was like,
Wait, that kind of looks like Bruce too.
Bro,
if Ken was a lawyer, I could see.
I look more
If Ken was a lawyer in another
Dude,
life.
Ant looks like actually looks
is
exactly
dumb.
like Ant. What the
That-
fuck?
that doesn't even look like me.
Just quickly on what that clip might mean from ZooMaa. I don't know if any of you guys are like lip reading experts. Feel free to fire away if you are in the comment section below. But the feeling would be that there's some sort of issue they're running into. I doubt that ZooMaa would say this if it's like a positive. You know, it's like, oh, have you heard about Major 4? It's going to be fire, XYZ. It's like probably doubtful. I imagine they've got a venue. We don't know what venue it's going to be yet. Like, we know that the Toronto event is going to be at the Mattamy Athletic Centre again, I imagine, because it was there last year. We know where Champs is, although they haven't told us officially. And then Major 4, we don't really know. It hasn't been confirmed. I mean, they've had venues there in the past. They've done Raleigh events. Okay, Charlotte hasn't really been done in CODs, maybe ever, or for at least a very long time. But you'd think that I've kind of got this sorted. And the dates of the major were determined by when the venue was going to be available. So that's kind of my question, right? Because we saw this with the Subliners event. It was Major 4 when it was meant to be in New York, but things fell through with sponsors and other stuff like that, and they ended up doing it in Columbus, right? Like with no fans or anything. And I don't know if that's going to happen again. Like, that is at least my read on what Zoom has said, that there is at least some degree of risk that the event in Charlotte basically doesn't go ahead and it's done without fans or something like that. I don't know. I guess we'll stay tuned. It would be deeply frustrating, but would you be surprised given the state of the league? I don't really know at this point. So, a couple of things to mention here. Of course, Scrappy, his numbers are pretty absurd in hardpoint and control so far this season. They play Vegas today. New York Subliners, of course, they're on the other side of the bracket. They play Boston. If they win that, they play either FaZe or Thieves. Quite probably FaZe, given what we understand about that potential FaZe versus Thieves series on paper. If you are looking for something to watch as well before everything begins, absolutely check out the One Shot documentary that we put on the Breaking Point channel yesterday. We premiered it yesterday. Just a sensational piece of content that Shorston put together here with classics. The guys that shot this, just the editing, I thought it was a stellar piece of content, and just sums up so much about Clay's drive and his career and his passion and what it takes to be where Clay is, because nobody else from a veteran perspective has done what Clay has done for this length of time. And look, I criticize Clay quite a lot, especially in the online periods, just because I know what he's capable of and I wish that he would perform better than he has done, and I'm sure he feels the same way. But on LAN, hopefully it's going to be a different story. He's always going to bring the energy, and it's frustrating playing 5 weeks of online qualifiers, I imagine, when LAN is right there. But they had the chance, Ravens, to make it to the winners bracket. They squandered the opportunity. They started losers. They're right at the top of the losers bracket, so they play the loser of OpTic and Heretics. So they've really got a hope today, I would say, Ravens, that Miami lose to OpTic, because if they play OpTic loses round 1, you might as well chalk it up. Miami loses round 1 is winnable. They did lose to Miami online the other day, quite emphatically, but I think on LAN that can very much be a different story. So these are the matches of today, all the winners bracket games. Honestly, a couple of banger games in here. Yes, there are favourites for each of these series, and in terms of predictions on the Breaking Point stuff, I'm not going to, change my mind on this. I'm probably just going to go with the favourites because I need to ensure, I'm not making any stupid decisions, because I think I'm number 1 or at least joint first in the predictions right now. But there are a couple of series here that have genuine opportunities, I would say, for upsets. So this is the order, by the way. It starts with Ultra Legion, that's series 1, then New York Boston, then OpTic Miami. So actually not last series of the day. This is what they usually do as well, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but OpTic usually on majors will play third, because it means that you kind of bring in the OpTic viewership just before, and then they'll stay on afterwards. I think that's their theory anyway, which probably is valid. These are the Pacific time numbers, by the way, as well. So 10:30 Pacific, 1:30 p.m. start Eastern, and then in the UK, that's 5:30, right? Because we're only 4 hours ahead because daylight savings in the US, all of that good stuff, or bad stuff, depending on your perspective on that, but I'm not going to get into it. So these are the series, right? Ultra Legion, first up, is on paper probably the most upsettable, I guess you could say, just because this is 4th versus 5th. Legion made it close online when they played. but I feel like Ultra have an extra gear. My risk is with Vegas this event, I still think they'll get top 6. But when it comes down to LAN experience, they don't obviously have the same level that Toronto do, but at the same time, they're probably playing with a fair bit of freedom because they know there isn't really any pressure on. If Vegas can win a hardpoint, this gets very interesting because if it goes game 5, I don't think it's clear cut, but I would say that Ultra should be favoured even in that scenario. So I'm going to take Ultra, but I'm going to take it in a close like 3-1 fashion, just like what I've on the line. I love a 3-1. Subliners Boston. This, to me, is like, if I had to predict an upset, I think I might go for this one. I don't really see a world in which Thieves beat FaZe last match of the day. Just that matchup doesn't tend to favour Thieves. And when FaZe have just come off a loss, they usually come and fire in. So I expect FaZe to win that one comfortably. OpTic Miami is kind of interesting, the home crowd thing, the fact that Heretics can be a bit of a bogey game for OpTic, but they did slam them on LAN last time, and I do think Miami are vulnerable in a LAN environment especially, so I don't really have too much difficulty predicting OpTic to win that one. The Boston-New York series, I think, is the one to watch. Maybe New York would come out and 3-0 smoke him, but I think that there's a possible map 5 upset there in play, but I guess New York are just a bit better in search and destroy, aren't they? So it's like, I think even looking at the upsettable series, if it was to go game 5, I would still lean the way of the favourite. So I think I'm going to go with that for today, but it should be a very interesting set of matches. And tomorrow's, I mean, the whole weekend is going to be spectacular, especially if all the favourites win. We are going to get some bangers in Winners Round 2. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.